Hello, my name is Larry Evans, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this message with you that I call the Joseph Plan, based on the biblical story found in Genesis chapters 41 and 47. In Psalm 105, verses 16 through 22, the psalmist reviews the history of Israel. In that review, he reminds his readers of a critical period in Israel's history when God had called for a famine in the land and cut off the food supply. This famine affected the entire known world of that time. It was similar to something that our nation experienced just a few generations ago that we refer to as the Great Depression. The psalmist also calls their attention to the fact that years before the famine actually occurred, God had raised up a young man named Joseph and sent him to Egypt ahead of them as a slave. He had orchestrated everything in such a way that when the time was right, Joseph was in position to advise the Egyptians and administer a plan that would enable them to avoid disaster and fulfill their divine destiny. What I want to share with you today on this video is a simple strategy to help you avert a similar disaster. Please listen carefully and prayerfully to what could very well be God's way for you to fulfill your destiny as a part of the Joseph generation. We're facing today what many believe will be the greatest economic crisis and wealth transfer in history. If you're not aware of this or doubt the reality of it, you can find plenty of information on the internet. There are several links on this page to all the documentation that you need. That's the bad news, like it or not, but I have good news. The good news is that just as God raised up Joseph in ancient times to help a nation avert disaster, he is raising up what I call the Joseph generation today for the same purpose. You can be sure also that if we are indeed about to witness the greatest economic failure, we're also going to see the greatest spiritual awakening since the first century. This time of economic devastation will be a time when entire cities, even nations, will be turning to God. As it becomes more and more evident that the economic systems of the world have failed, people will be looking for someone like Joseph who has the knowledge, the wisdom, and the resources to guide them to a better way. I want to encourage you to know that you are, or at least can be, a part of that group of people who have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. I sincerely believe that by carefully and prayerfully studying the life and experience of Joseph, we can better understand what our calling and destiny is in this generation. When you look closely at what Joseph advised the Egyptians to do in preparation for the famine in chapter 41 of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, and then look at the results of following that advice in chapter 47, you can see that the same plan Joseph presented to the Egyptians can work for us today. As we look at this plan, keep this in mind. Proverbs 27:12 says, "A prudent or wise person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences." With that said, note that Joseph's proposal involves 4 phases. Phase 1 has to do with preparing and planting the fields. It's not specifically stated, but any farmer would recognize that Joseph's plan would require the Egyptians to have fields to prepare, plant, and cultivate. In today's world, having a field means owning your own business. If you're working a job, that's fine, but you're actually working someone else's field, which would be the owner of the business you work for. And in today's world, having a job is not enough. For the Joseph plan to work, you have to have your own field. You have to be a business owner. The seed you plant is the time and money invested to get the business up and running. So where do we find the kind of business that will generate the income we need to not only meet current needs, but prepare for the future economic crisis? Where do you find a field to plant and cultivate? The best opportunities available today are going to be found in what is known as network, or as some call it, relationship marketing businesses. In the United States, network marketing is a $31 billion industry involving over 63 million people earning money with their own business. This model has many benefits. One is that it requires a minimal startup and maintenance costs with virtually no risk. And it also emphasizes people helping people. They are networking and sharing in ways that make it possible to do far more together than one individual working alone. To be effective, the Joseph Plan will require income earning levels the average person would not dream of even under normal circumstances. We're talking about as much as six-figure monthly incomes. And just in case you're wondering if you have what it takes to build that kind of a business, let me ask you this. Can you talk to people and direct them to a website or video presentation like this one? I thought so. So the first phase of Joseph's plan was acquiring and planting the fields. For us, that means starting and building a home-based business. The second phase of Joseph's plan was gathering and storing a portion of the harvest. Joseph instructed them to gather 1/5 or 20% of all the food produced in the good years and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses. Actually, that's not a bad percentage to consider today. Remember this, it's not how much you make that determines your wealth, but how much you keep. So as quickly as possible, you should be paying off all your debt, including your home and auto loans, and start setting aside 20% of your earnings. Then you can get ready for phase 3 of Joseph's plan, which is protecting the stored harvest. When looking at Joseph's instructions, it's important to note that he cautioned the Egyptians not only to store the grain, but to protect it as well. He told them to store it away and guard it. It wouldn't matter how much was saved during the good times if it was all stolen or destroyed before the famine came. This is a critical point. I'm not talking about standing over your cash with a shotgun or booby-trapping your property. There's something else you need to be aware of. As you begin to generate a cash flow, and you will if you follow our simple plan, it will be important to protect or guard its value by converting a portion of the currency you're accumulating to precious metals like silver and gold. This is for the simple reason that under our current economic system, as things progress, U.S. dollars will become worth less and less. If left in currency, the thief of runaway inflation will steal away its value. Matters not how many dollars you have stored away. If they're worthless, just remember that when the economic crisis hits, you will not be in a position to benefit unless you've saved a portion of the wealth that you've created and also preserved it by converting it into things that did not lose their value. In the preface of his book, Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver, author Mike Maloney makes this observation. He says, I believe the greatest investment opportunity in history is knocking on your door. You can open it or not. The choice is yours. Now, the fourth and last phase of Joseph's plan involves a massive wealth transfer. When the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of money, they brought their livestock to Joseph in exchange for food. In exchange, Joseph provided them with food for another year. They eventually traded all their land for food. So what's the point? Just this. Whenever there's a negative economic event like a real estate or tech bubble bursting, a stock market crash, depression, etc., it may be assumed that large amounts of wealth are lost, that it somehow just evaporates or is destroyed. That is very seldom the case. The reality is that wealth is not destroyed. It is simply transferred from the masses to the few who had the insight to see what was coming and prepare for it, which is what we're trying to help you do today. As Mike Maloney stated in the book I just mentioned, during these events, there is always an enormous wealth transfer, and it is within your power to choose whether it's transferred towards you or away from you. If you choose to have it transferred towards you, then you must first educate yourself and take action. Consider the possibility that those who follow the Joseph plan as presented here and are able to wait out the economic storm that appears inevitable, consider that they just might find themselves with an accumulation of enough silver and gold, real money, to invest in very profitable enterprises and manage them in a way that will reflect the glory of God and advance the cause of Christ in the earth. I encourage you to take action today by getting back with the person who referred you to this video or website. Find out exactly what you need to do and get plugged into this simple, proven system where you can turn a minimal monthly investment into a 6 to 7 figure income in the quickest way possible. If no one referred you, then click on the link just under this video and fill in the form. Someone will be getting in touch with you soon. Now, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I urge you carefully and prayerfully to consider joining us, or at least pass this on to someone you would like to bless. And may the Lord bless you and your family exceedingly abundantly above all you could ask or think.